Hi everybody, it's Shafman from Shafman TV. I hope you're brilliant. I'm going to look at today Trump in China. So Donald Trump's currently in China meeting Xi Jinping and looking at what uh, the Trump administration's policy objectives are in relation to what the rhetoric is. So on the campaign trail, Trump described China as a currency manipulator. He said that the Chinese were stealing jobs from the United States and he was going to put a stop to it. And he said that China had an unfair advantage in the global economic system due to currency manipulation and cheap wages. So the rhetoric is one thing on the campaign trail, but the reality has been completely different. Trump has warmed to China. He seems to get on quite well with Xi Jinping. And I think the reality is that China is now too big to push around. China's got the second largest output in the world. It will overtake the United States. It's inevitable as the largest, richest economy in the world. China has got the largest reserves of US dollars in the world. It's got the largest reserves of gold in the world. It's got huge amounts of capital and huge amounts of investments around the world, including the United States. It's got some of the biggest companies in the world, companies that we haven't heard about in the West, but companies which are huge. Obviously, everybody knows Alibaba, but there's others like Tencent and Huawei, which is the equivalent of Uber, for example. And the Chinese economy is too big and its output is too important for the global economy. If there's negative economic data from China, that's bad for the world. Okay, the Chinese economy is growing at 67% still from a very large base as well, with 1.3 billion people. And the world economy needs China. China needs the world economy, but the world economy needs China desperately. Commodity companies need China. China consumes basically 50% of all commodities, copper, iron, all sorts of things for these massive infrastructural programs that China has. So I think that the point is that Trump's campaign rhetoric on the campaign trail is one thing, but the reality is completely different. Now, there are some policy objectives that the administration want to achieve, most notably North Korea. United States needs China in their pursuit to try and contain North Korea. Okay, there's no two ways about it. Whether that's through sanctions or through, less the stick and more the carrot, if you're going to take a carrot and stick approach, or whether you're going to normalize relations with Pyongyang. United States needs China. Okay, China's becoming also increasingly important for countries looking to pivot away from NATO from the United States. China have got a one belt policy which has seen them undertake lots and lots of infrastructural programs around the world. They head a development bank to encourage countries to develop infrastructure and develop business and have closer ties with China. You've also seen at the Paris Agreement where President Xi took the lead, where Trump has basically rejected the Paris Climate Agreement, where Xi, it was seen as his moment of coming onto the international stage. You also see China leading green energy, leading the race for electric cars, leading the race for wind power and solar power, and China's push to modernize and improve infrastructure and factually lift more people out of poverty than anyone in history has done. So in this context, United States needs China. Obviously, China needs the United States. United States is still the largest economy in the world, and if the United States economy falters, then the whole world's going to falter. But the Chinese economy, the data coming out of the Chinese economy is hugely important for the global economy. Make no mistake about it. So that's why the rhetoric that Trump's had and has sometimes on Twitter is a bit different to how he actually deals with China face to face. Okay, because you know, regardless of whatever you think, if you look on a map, for example, you'll see that the United States basically encircles China from the Philippines to Japan to South Korea to some countries in Asia. The United States has got military bases right around China. Go and look on a map, okay? So ask yourself why. The reason for this is that the United States still has, in my opinion, a paranoia about China. It still views China with suspicion. So militarily, nothing. I don't particularly think that anything's going to come of this, because obviously the United States could defeat China militarily in a heartbeat if they chose to. The Chinese are not yet on par with the United States because no country is militarily. But it's interesting that you have the the relatively good relations between China and the United States. You've got the encirclement of China, and you've also got China coming onto the international stage with confidence on issues like green energy, and encouraging development infrastructural programs independently of sort of the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, and being an option there for countries that are looking to pivot away from the West. So really interesting times ahead. One final point for all investors is we're living in a completely globalized world, okay? You need to be up to speed what's happening politically and economically around the world, because there are ramifications. What happens in China, what happens in Philippines, what happens in Brazil, what happens in Africa, in the United States, in the Eurozone. There's implications for your investments, and it is a completely interlinked, globalized world. Make no mistake about it. You're not living in a bubble. There is ramifications for what happens in one part of the world right into our part of the world and into our investment world as well. So bear that in mind. And yeah, I hope it's been a useful video, and I wish you a fantastic day. Please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate comments and subscriptions. Thank you.